Order. Board meeting, start off with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do we have any agenda additions or deletions? No. All right. Do we have anybody registered to comment on action items tonight? Nope. Well, we can start with our guest reports. And I think first on the list here is Skillman.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Scott Cherry with the Skillman Corporation, one of the project managers for all the projects going on here. We got the natatorium. So we're gonna give him on here. Yep, got an update for the natatorium, and then an update for the old pool infill project. So once Jay gets this ready. Film shot of the natatorium there with all the pavement just being finished a few weeks ago. Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah, like I was saying, just the natatorium and the old pool. This photo, you can kind of see some of the deck tile that's finishing up right now. They were cleaning it today, washing it. So I'll start with the natatorium update. So finishing the pool deck tile, just finishing up painting and touch-ups, filling the pool here next week, and finishing carpet, elevator startup, interior doors and hardware we're finishing up, and we just started installing a bunch of the pool deck equipment, so the diving board, the lane markers, the flags, and then I think next week we're starting the can't think of the name of it right now.
Bulkhead.
Yeah, the bulkhead, there we go. And what the bulkhead is, it's a platform for the starting blocks that you can divide the pool, so you can either use part of it or you can adjust how long the lengths are. It's a pretty cool system, so that'll be starting here shortly. So, and then I just have some photos, the elevator, some of the accent painting in the pool lounge area. And you can see the shallow end where the stairs are to go in, and some of the lighting fixtures. It's hard to see on these little photos, and then there's little drying heaters that are along the behind the diving boards, where when swimmers are out of the pool, they can stand there and warm up and dry off. So go ahead. And then this is the old pool infill project. We just started full-on demolition in the old pool area. We got big equipment in there. We got the weight room expansion, lots of masonry infill going on from some of the doors get infilled with masonry, and paintings going on, continuing electrical rough-ins, continuing HVAC and acoustical wall panels in the field house, finishing coach's platform in the fitness room. So there's a lot of little areas going on for this project, because it's not just the old pool. There's some other areas of the school that are getting renovated and expanding like the weight room, making a new fitness center, stuff like that, so. Yep, and then that's just some painting of these acoustical panels, and yeah. Any questions or anything?
Are we still on schedule?
Yeah, so I was talking with Mark today about when he thinks that it'll get turned over fully. He's hopeful the 24th, I believe he said, but he said by the end of the month for sure it'll be
Sounds
ready,
great.
so,
Sounds wonderful.
yeah. So they got, I think the health department has to come out and do some testing and stuff like that. I think that's scheduled for next week sometime. So, yeah, it's getting there.
Exciting.
All the final inspections, I think he's got scheduled for next week, stuff like that. So it'll be very, very close.
Be nice to not see any construction, no contractors.
They'll still be around, just not in that area.
Right, and there'll be smaller vehicles.
Yeah.
You saw those beautiful parking spaces though.
Yeah. You'll have plenty of parking for football season.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I do also believe, Jason, do you want to talk about the change order for the West Drive?
Yeah.
Or one of the Scott Cherries?
While we're here, be happy.
You said you didn't want to talk about it.
So there's a change order on the docket for the West Drive for the high school. It's in pretty bad shape from construction and just over the years. So it's leading out to Deanna Drive and then kind of that half turn that leads back to where we left it at. I believe it's an inch mill on that
Yeah, for the paving.
for the paving, and then they'll just paint it with those lane dividers and everything in there for the change order that you see in front of you.
So it's structurally sound, it's just the top
Yeah,
coating?
you're just getting some cracking, some alligator and some potholes that we just need to address before they get worse.
But if there's anything significant where they find there's a dip or a
Yeah,
major thing, they'll
absolutely. Well,
fill
they're
it in?
gonna fix some of the drainage issues on the other side, but then they're gonna fix any drainage issues they come across on that West Drive. Yep.
Okay. I know we did a good job putting it in there.
Oh, 100%. I guarantee you did. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So next up is curriculum instruction and assessment.
Okay, so I don't have an extensive report to share other than we're getting ready for the school year to rock and roll. Next Wednesday already, we have our new teacher
The
orientation.
intermediate and middle school. Okay.
We will know usually at the secondary level, we get people who just don't show up. The parents don't contact us when they leave, so we're anticipating that there may be an additional numbers that go down, but we're still getting numbers coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is you
That's
now.
us now?
Sorry. Yes, that's right.
So Tammy was the inspiration for us to launch the RDP Virtual Academy, and then she passed the baton off to Josh, who was just starting his job, and to Dan, who was just starting his job as well. So they took the baton and ran.
Our new leadership this year, and we looked at kind of giving an overview right at the beginning of the handbook, so that way everybody can see the key pieces and then move down to find more details in there. You're gonna find that most of it is the same. We've just tweaked the wordings, but overall, the attendance piece, the courses listed and how they refer to IHSAA eligibility, those are our big pieces.
Any questions from the board?
We still limit 99 students?
Yes, we're still limited to 99 for the district.
And at this point, are we doing close to that, or?
So last year, and I know this is part of his slides, but last year we had 79 at the end of the year. We're gonna anticipate being between 60 and 70 to start the year this year, which is considerably more than we started the year with last year. We are going to anticipate being in that same range again this year.
Sounds good. As long as we're not losing.
We're not losing.
Definitely
We're
not
definitely
losing.
not losing.
Yeah, so like Dan said, so what I have here is kind of a review of what we did last year.
Kind of give everybody an update on just what our virtual looks like, some of our policies, how it operates, and then projections of what we're looking at. We had a meeting literally today. Yesterday closed the application window for our first round of applicants. What was our total? 64. And so we'll go through our approvals, all that kind of stuff. We're pushing all that out tomorrow, so that's pretty fresh. So like Dan said, we had a total of 79 by the end of the year. Last year, that's kind of the breakdown. The intention is for it to be a little heavier at the high school level, especially with our upperclassmen. We're looking at what we have found, and I'll kind of, well, I don't want to step on my own toes here, so let's just keep at pace. So you mind going to the next one there, Jake? Thank you. So this is from last year. A concern was what it looks like. We want those kiddos back that went homeschool. We want our kids back in some capacity. That was a big reach. We also found that we were attracting out-of-district kiddos, that we could offer this incentive, and for what we can offer that's different than most virtual academies, and this is the pitch every time we talk to a parent or a student, you're ours, you're our kid, you're our student. That's all the good stuff that comes with it. Yeah, you're virtually at home, but you can participate in athletics and clubs. You can come to our extracurricular activities, our dances. You walk across our stage, which is a big deterrent to Indiana Connections. You're just done. That's it. And so that was a big selling point we found for a lot of people.
I want to add in here, I don't know if it's later, so I may be stepping on my toes too, but of the applications for this school year, I'm happy to see that we have 13 so far that would be new students to Tri Creek, except 8 of them are Lowell residents that are trying to come back, either from homeschool or other online platforms. We have 8 applications already just for Lowell residents coming back.
That was my big closing.
Dang it!
Really excited.
I know, you'll talk to him later on.
I'm really excited.
Sit down.
Yeah, this is why
I'm a
I
solo
stand back
act.
here.
He just pops out
Yeah.
the whole thing. So something we were working on today, trying to get a final handle on. So this is where we were kind of further anticipating, so what it brings in, what it makes for us. So when I talk about students that are coming back to us, if we look at that from a funding perspective, we're getting nothing. They go home, they go homeschool, they go Indiana Connections, 0. And so the big attraction was new students who are, I don't want to use the word threatening because it's not, I don't take it as a threat, it's an option they have to go homeschool or go to Indiana Connections. So when they tell us that, we have another option for you. And so we look at that as a win. And so just some light numbers here. So here's the breakdown of the 79 students. What we paid out, about, let's just call it 188,000 for ed options is what we pay out for the program. What we make per student, we made just shy of about 300,000. That means the virtual program alone earned Tri Creek just shy of 106,000. And so as we continue to pump up those numbers, and as we're looking at students that are, like Dan said, the numbers went up that we're attracting or bringing back or retaining. And so that is a positive trend that we're looking for. So, it's an important piece to look at the financial end of it, but what we're doing for them and offering them is huge. And so going into our next, I'm sorry, I keep moving it on here and not on there, my bad. Every single senior that out of those, 18, I think it was, graduated. So that means they got the necessary credits, they completed their pathway, and they still walked across our stage. We are very, very proud of that. Of those 79 students, 377 credits were earned. And again, those are Tri Creek Lowell High School credits. So some are coming back in person. They're not behind. They didn't lose anything. They're coming back right on pace. Whether they choose to stay virtually and reapply or come back in person, they're all good from that end. So some trends that we learned as we're going through, nope, not yet, thank you, right there. What we learned from the credits and student success. A big thing is if we saw success in a student in person and for whatever reason they requested to go virtual and we granted that, they stayed successful. They held themselves to a routine, they held themselves on schedule, they paced things out, they didn't cram it up. We saw a lot of good success. Students who had more non-medical, non-academic purposes to attend the virtual academy, we did show lower attendance, which I'll get to what our attendance policy looks like here in a little bit. We had a hard time getting a hold of them, regularly, I should say, and we saw less success. So the trend we kind of saw was what they were doing here in person, they were doing a lot of the same in virtual. And so that's a big part of our conversation when we do these applications or we need to maybe have another phone call before we approve them, is that this is not a cakewalk. This is not a walk in the park. This is not you go home and do whatever you want. You're still a student, so you're still held at that standard. So looking ahead to, I did it again. Thanks, Jay. Perfect. Okay, looking ahead to what we have coming in this fall. We have 46 students as of now. That number was literally as I closed my computer and we left, I don't know, an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, it was
And came
still
back,
going up.
the number was increasing. Because this is what we know we had approved, that those people are getting emails and letters tomorrow. We had some where we had question marks and we divvied up who's gonna talk to who, and those conversations were already happening today. So we anticipate that number to continue to increase, but as of, I'd say, 3 o'clock? Maybe three-ish?
Yeah,
Three-ish today, these were accurate numbers, so what we're seeing, again, the approvals that, the more that are coming in are high school level. I'd say, I think 1 8th grader from our maybes?
Yeah.
Something around there. You can feel free to chime in now, you already took my
Okay.
closer, so.
All right, I took the closer.
Yeah.
I left your money.
It's true, well, you didn't want to
Yeah,
talk about that.
I know. What we did see with middle school is that we had a lot more middle school last year. We were up to 31 in middle school, and this year we have like 18 that have carried over. A lot of the ones that went virtual in middle school decided to come back in person for this year. So that was a large portion of that. So we're seeing a little more of that split between middle school and high school.
And so just like the slide I had for last year, this is the current numbers for this year. So we have 13 brand new students to Tri-Creek. 8 of the 13 are in-district students. So again, those are kiddos that left us at some point for whatever reason, but now they're back enrolled with us. So we're looking at, right now, again, these numbers were fluctuating as they were going, but 5 brand new students transfers from out of district. So all pluses, it puts us in the positive.
Of the ones that were going in from the other districts, one of the biggest selling points we're hearing is they're coming from Crown Point and Lake Central, those huge places where they're putting right in their application that they want something that feels a little more homey or smaller scale, and they want that kind of family feeling instead of being lost in a sea of 3,000 students. So it's nice that we're able.
So the next couple slides might look familiar to some of you, but I figured with more new board members kind of going into what we've learned, how this rolls, what it looks like, just kind of do a brief overview. So this is mostly what we learned from year 1, especially going into semester 2, is our review committee. Having a large committee that knows these students, has worked with them before. Now we have a year's worth of data of what they maybe performed already in virtual school, if it's successful for them. Our current students who are looking to go virtual, what we think it'll do for them. And so that was a big part of our meeting today, was bringing in all the guidance counselors and going, okay, what have they come talk to you? They say anxiety is a big issue for them. Well, I don't know these students as well as they do. We all need to talk. We all need to have these conversations. We all need to see what's best for them academically, personally, medically, all those kinds of things. Those first 2 weeks are pretty vital. You know what, one thing I didn't add in here that I'll throw in is making sure that we're doing check-ins, making sure that they don't have any questions. What we're finding is they're not reaching out to us as much. They are reaching out to Ed Options, but we want to keep that link and connection. So having our guidance counselors and administration do that. One thing also that we're going to add in from last year we did not do that we're going to do this year on the 13th, we're going to hold a parent informational meeting in the auditorium. Part of our struggles to get off the ground last fall was a lot of the same questions from parents mostly. Where do we go? They didn't understand something. They maybe can't understand what Ed Options teachers are telling them. So we're going to show them everything. Here's where you log in. Here's what your course looks like. here's, you know, where
Here's
you
which
go.
grade you need to look at. That was very popular.
It was,
Because there's 3 grades in Edmonton, you
Yeah.
gotta be looking at the right one, so
yeah.
they had that question a lot, like, we're just gonna get that one early with a parent meeting.
End of quarter, do some Google Meets with those individual students, making sure that they're successful, making sure that everything's looking good. Keeping on them to help monitor progress and let them know they're not getting lost in the virtual world with Ed Options, which is, again, the name of the platform that we use. But they are reporting to us as well and checking in. Removal from the virtual academy, making sure that some students, again, they like just being at home. But they're not routine, they're not following the process or the suggestions we're giving or that Ed Options is giving. Well, we still have that responsibility to make sure that this Tri-Creek education is of quality. And so if we're not seeing that on their end and working with them through progress, we ask that they come back in person. Is that we can get them here, we can help them out, we can get hands-on a little bit more. And again, more team members, making sure our action team for virtual was a little bit larger. First go around, you're looking at 2/3 of the team. I'd say us and Bryn Denton, our director of guidance. So another big thing we learned is we need more people, because that was a lot for Dan. Okay, we'll go to the next one there. Again, this is a little flash of what the platform looks like for them, so what students see. So,
This is what I was talking about too.
yeah, go ahead, Dan.
This on-target grade is what we want people to look at. This is a grade that includes the things that have been assigned already and the stuff that they have turned in. But there are 3 or 2 other grades that people look at, and then they tell their parents that I'm doing fine because I did all of this. They look at this grade, that's the wrong grade. So they can do one assignment, get a 90% on it, say they have an A, and then not do 50 more assignments, and that still says an A, because that's what they've turned in. So it's very important that we look at the on-target grade.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So obviously, when they look at it, it can be a little bit different. I mean, clearly their course grade is failing right now, because they're not all the way through yet. And so that's their overall course, that they never did anything ever again. Like Dan said, on target is what we're looking for. I can stand behind you and everyone can see me, it's okay. And then obviously their current grade is what we're looking at. And then time on task is always very helpful for us. Some kiddos like to log in and they just leave it running, thinking that they need their time on. No, we want quality when you're on there. The amount of time it takes Dan and I to do the same task might be completely different. And so what we're looking at is how it's getting done, when it's getting done, those kinds of things.
So does that monitor activity
Yes.
versus just they turned it on and then I turned it off?
It'll log idle time.
Yeah.
So they can turn it on and that doesn't, they have to actually be doing.
That's good.
something.
Yeah. We thought of all the tricks. Dan and I would have done them then, so we have a good lead on them. All right, so our attendance policy is something that changed again, that we added to the handbook officially, and we adjusted with guidance, guidance from the state on what they should look like. And so we really had to determine, kind of like what you said, what does attendance look like, just at its pure form. We have students that come here every single day that might just put their head down, but they're present. And so activity and progress versus attendance and what we have to report through Skyward and then to the state, it became quite the conversation on how we determine that. And essentially, we tried to keep it as pure as it could, as attendance, as being present. That's it. The progress monitoring, all that in their grade is another conversation. So students must be to be marked virtually present. They have to log in at least once a week. And how long, what that looks like, looks a little different. But once we did put this in place, we did notice 2 things. Progress was going up and attendance was getting better. They knew we were holding them accountable. We had something tangible, and so that's why Dan added it to the handbook for us. And so another big piece that we often get questions on are students with IEPs or 504s. And so what that looks like, if virtual can support them, if how we operate, and the answer is 100%. IEPs are something that are accommodations made for individuals that have maybe a learning disability or struggle in an area. The teachers that are available through Ed Options get all that information, just like teachers in person would. And so we're still giving them the same accommodations, making sure that they're still have every chance to be successful. There's no free rides. They still have to get their work done and complete, but with their accommodations that are built in through their learning plan is very important. 504s are much more of a in-person thing. People get the two confused pretty often. So 504s aren't nearly as needed to be, they still go, we still meet them, but the accommodations or modifications that are put into a 504 are very different. And so those are mostly for in-person. So IEPs are the big ones that we made sure we noticed more that have to be shared.
And those that know me know that special education was my background too, so I am always working with NYSEC to make sure that our students that are online are still getting quality teacher of record services. We're still making sure that their IEP is being followed no matter where they are. Virtual students still get all of that same support. And I will work with the NYSEC district director at any time to make sure that we're still getting everything done.
And so last thing I got rid of, because we did some work with those projections on the numbers as far as funding goes. And what we found is it changes every month. And what I mean by that is we might have a student who applies later on. If we have space and we feel the need and we approve it, it changes. So not only does it change what we pay for that student to add options, but it changes what that student brings in as far as funding. And so I kind of got rid of the slide. So my plan is around the end of the semester, we can do a recap and see where we're at halfway through, what's changed, how these numbers have gone up, gone down, whatever. And so that's the plan there. So I actually got rid of that slide because I didn't think it was that applicable right now.
The Edmentum part. The Edmentum part of that is they charge us different amounts based on the time and what we enroll the student in. So they charge a certain amount if we enroll a student for a semester. However, if it is, October, we don't want to enroll a student for a semester because it's cheaper for us to enroll them month by month. So we would pay a monthly fee for each of the months. And so that changes the numbers for that. So that's why there's a difference.
I think that's it. Any questions for us?
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do it, like I said, we'll do a recap towards the end of the first semester.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
All right, Dana.
Tonight, I have 3 items on the agenda for your consideration. We went over the change order for the access road paving. Just to put it in minutes here, that total change order is for $83,004 worth of work there, which is in the project. We knew this was coming. We delayed this to the end of the project because of all the construction, and we were using that access road, just to remind you. So it was built in the project on the front end with all the other paving we did. We just delayed it for now. The other item I have on the agenda is the cash change bank at Lowell Middle School / Intermediate School. This is an annual thing. We handled it for the high school last month, so similar to that. The final thing on the agenda here is the Career and Tech Education Director contract. So Tri-Creek Schools is the LEA, so we handle the financials for the South Lake Career Cooperative. It's a cooperative of 4 school districts, Tri-Creek, Crown Point, Hanover, and Kankakee Valley. And we share services and grants monies together to support our career and technical ed programs. We also share a director. So the contract before you is, since we are technically the financial employer for the cooperative, it's split 4 ways. So what you see before you, we're not paying the full bill. We are getting reimbursed from the other schools within the corporation here. So just to let you know, but as their employer, I have to ask the board to approve it. It does include an increase as voted upon by the directors of the CTE board in there. So that's been approved by them with his review annual evaluation. I also want to let you know that our summer meal program wrapped up really well. It did. That federal program provided free meals to our community and within our community and outside of our community. So our food service staff served members. All they had to do was drive through and they picked up 7 meals a week if they showed up the 2 days that we were serving. And they were open for operation 32 hours this summer. 32 hours in 2-hour spurts of handing out meals. And in that time, they served 59,000 meals. 59,000 meals in 32 hours by just handing bags and feeding children that way. That equates to 30.73 meals per minute. You know, I gotta bring it down to the numbers. So, yeah, so congratulations to a very successful program in our food service department for taking that on. We were very fortunate to qualify for that again this year. We qualified for it in 5 years, so we'll have it for another 3 more years. And then we'll have to see if we qualify at that point again and see if we could renew it, because it's really making a difference for those kiddos that need meals in the summer. So that's a huge success there again. The transportation department, they had their back to school meeting yesterday. Went over all the compliance stuff that they need to for the beginning of the school year. They're ready to transport our 2,200 students that we have that ride the bus through regular routes and athletics. So they were ready to go from what I understand, and we are fully staffed. So I'm knocking on wood as I say that, so things are good. We're in a good staffing place. So that's the business report.
I had a question, Dana. It's
Sure.
like just a question. Why do we have to vote on the road paving if it was already in the plan?
It was in the plan to do, but you're approving the price because it was a carve out. So you're approving this, the quote. So
Okay, so it was
anything we
never
spend
bid. Okay,
that's over the threshold of $50,000, we have to have you approve.
I got you.
And it was already budgeted in the.
It was budgeted, but
We delayed it.
yes, it becomes a breakout and then I have to bring it to you.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. All right, next up, Jay, technology.
I do not have any action items for you this evening, but just a quick couple of updates. Our device setup for the year is wrapping up. Our team has all of our student devices ready to go. We did hand out our first batch of student devices to our high school bridges team, which is about 20 students or so. And I'm happy to report that our initial tests of our new monitoring software that keeps us in compliance with the changes in legislation required for teachers to be able to monitor students and keep them on task during the day worked great. So we're very excited about that. Tammy has graciously afforded some time in our beginning of the year teacher training for us to run through that. So we're very excited. As well as our tests for the software for our parents to be able to monitor and control devices off-site when students come home at secondary, since those are the devices that will be going home. That is working out great as well. So as we start the beginning of the school year, expect some communications coming out from my office to our parents regarding how to set up that software for home, as well as our changes for Canvas. Since Canvas is going away and we are moving to Google Classroom, we'll be sharing information with our parents on how to access that information to keep up with their students' progress. But everything's moving ahead for the beginning of the year as expected.
You're still smiling, so that's a good sign.
Better than the alternative.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Dr. Anderson.
I don't have a very cheery superintendent report tonight, but nonetheless,
I gotta go to the bathroom, sorry.
we've got reality that's starting to set in. And I heard Jace talk about how Canvas was going away, and that just seems to be a common theme of reduce, 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 because we are in a financial situation. So I'm going to have Dana kick us off with just a brief summary of a reminder to everybody of why a school referendum in November of 2026.
Yeah, so it's been a long year and almost a half of dissecting Senate Enrolled Act 1 and how it will affect us here at Tri Creek. That was passed in April of
2025,
April
actually.
15th, 2025. And it was, it was signed then. We had a board meeting on the details April 30th, 2025. So the ink wasn't even dry at that point, and we were planning, because we knew this was going to dramatically change things in Tri-Creek as far as property tax funding. Studying it over the last year and couple months, the estimates are anywhere up to about $2.7 million that we will see at the highest watermark here due to the property tax credits in Senate Enrolled Act 1 that roll on for our taxpayers. This is a 6-year process where we won't feel the full effect until 6 years from now. But the initial hit for 2026, when this started to play into our tax rolls, was a tax loss here for Tri-Creek schools this year of $2,045,000. We went from a circuit breaker credit loss of $645,000 to $2,045,000 overnight, literally 8 months after the ink dried on this bill. Those funds go into the operations fund, which is totally separate from the education fund. And I'll talk a little bit about the education fund and what that challenge we had a couple years ago with. But operations fund now is being threatened by the loss of property tax here. 80% of our operations fund expenditures, these are the things that are closest to, or farthest away from the classroom. Education would be closest, operations is farthest away, even though the lights are in the room, and that's one thing that's paid for out of the operations fund, but 80% of the operations fund is made up of market-driven costs. Those are things we can't control. Those are things we need. Those are things right here on there, and you can see how much they've increased throughout the years. NIPSCO for the school district, 17%. It's gone up 17%. New school buses, 20%. They cost 20% more. Our property casualty, workers' comp, a combined there of about 14% increase all around there. And then fuel, of course, for our buses, 8%. You can see the operations effect there. So in our operations fund, we have all of our transportation costs. We have all of our custodial maintenance and grounds. We have some technology in there. Again, these are the things farthest away from the classroom, the central office, of course, administration in the central office area. So it's not just a Tri-Creek issue. You've heard me say that time and time again. This is across the state that the impact of Senate Enrolled Act 1 hits schools, it hits towns, it hits trustees, libraries, fire, police. All of them are seeing reduced budgets. Since then, so we ran a referendum in 2023. And it was not approved by the public. So since 2023, we have eliminated all those positions on the screen there, 34 different positions since 2023. So when the referendum didn't pass, we knew we couldn't make ends meet with the education fund. And this was truly for the education fund. We ran it for some needs, and we also ran it for some wants. That's a difference of 2023 referendum versus the current referendum. 2023, we made the changes, we heard the public, we balanced the education fund because that was all education fund items that we were looking to solve there. And we made cuts to other items up here, such as curriculum resources. We turned every contract upside down and renegotiated it. We restructured departments, we restructured instructional, and did what we could to maybe combine 2 hats into one and, eliminate a position. So we did that. Class sizes swelled at that point too, and we took on that commitment to go higher in class sizes as well for our staff. So Senate Enrolled Act 1, what you're seeing on screen here is the projections of our cash flow for all funds here at Tri-Creek, our education, our operations, and our rainy day funds, our main operating funds here to keep the lights on and the children coming to school and the children in the classroom. What you see here is in between, somewhere just shy of a little bit past the first of the year in 2030. At this pace of our current, without any kind of replacement for the Senate Enrolled Act 1 loss, property tax loss, we will be out of our cash balance. We'll work through all of our reserves at that point, and payroll will be a challenge to meet. So a referendum is necessary in order to make up that amount because it's such a large amount, between 2.6 and 3 million to keep our doors open here.
So, as you've probably heard, as I, and open any town social media page, if you hadn't built that athletic complex, you wouldn't be in this situation. Well, first of all, it wasn't just the athletic complex. I hope people that realize you have to maintain your facilities. You can't let them go bad. And so this was a district-wide capital improvements project over the past, we started 4 years ago. And that included replacing LED lighting at the intermediate, middle school, and high school. Why? To save costs, because utilities were going up. So we made that investment to get a return on it. We had classroom furniture at the elementaries that were 20, 25 years old, beaten, worn up, starting to fall apart. We replaced it. Carpet that was worn out, we replaced it. Fresh coat of paint. We then turned the middle school campus into 2 schools under one roof. That actually saved the community millions of dollars from not having to add on additions to other elementary schools to accommodate, back then, the subdivision growth and being able to accommodate 5th grade in the elementaries. Instead, we pushed them to the middle school campus, 2 schools under one roof, which is actually what it was designed for from the very beginning. And then the athletic complex obviously was dilapidated and needed pretty much an overhaul. And so that happened. But all of those projects, as you know, were properly budgeted for, planned for. It did not raise the tax rate, so it was tax neutral at the time. But there's this notion out there, if you hadn't done that, then we wouldn't be in the position. But it's almost like if you can think of taking a mortgage loan and being able to pay your insurance or your light bill, it doesn't work that way. With all of those cuts that Dana talked about, we are already running as lean as we possibly can. Our classes are at their max. And so what else do you cut to close a $3 million deficit that wasn't created by us? Well, as a superintendent, I hear from people, well, cut your administrative cost. Okay. My question is, which role do you recommend cutting, and what will be the impact? So let's just say we cut $200,000 or $300,000 worth of administrative position. Who's going to address the next school safety issue that comes up that we address, right? We get social media posts going to blow up the school. Who's going to address that? Who's going to coordinate the response and the police and the search? And who's going to file the next state report? Who's going to build the next budget? We just had 2 administrators stand up here and tell us about Red Devil Virtual Academy. That's a lot of coordination. If I heard right, they realized it was beyond the work of one individual and they dispersed it. That program alone brings in over $100,000 based on that report that we just saw. So we're going to cut an administrator and then basically have to cut that program too. We're no money ahead. Who's going to run the place? Okay, and then you still have 2.7 million. So now what do you suggest cutting? Okay, well, we really cannot cut any more teachers. Our class sizes are already maxed. Who's going to teach the kids? You can't even fit the number of bodies in classrooms that we would need to if we continued to cut our teaching staff. Okay. So support staff, buses, and extracurriculars. Anything that's left to cut has to be a big ticket item to close $3 million. Bus transportation is $2.3 million. That's a big ticket item. And honestly, it is the only large ticket item that has come to the surface. Well, that still leaves $700,000. And so when you talk about student programs, you're talking about sports and clubs, classroom instructional aids, because that supports student learning in the classroom. Oh, by the way, our classrooms are already at their max. Lots of kids, those instructional aids serve a very specific purpose and serve the needs of our kids that need it. And then you got safety programs. We got mental health programs, we've got counselors, we've got school resource officers. That's all part of that remaining $700,000. This administration and this board really has no other option. I imagine there's a chair sitting there, and I would say to the community, if there's any one person in this community that has any other suggestion of how to fill a $3 million deficit, please come in and sit down and let us know. We would love to hear how are we going to do that without, first bullet, terminating bus service.
And a lot of people that would respond to that say, no, I can do that by just doing this, that, and the other, have no clue the intricacies of a successful school operation. And I can attest to what you're saying. You cannot run a district with no staff, skilled staff that are doing the very best and accepting more roles than they've ever taken on in the past.
So it says termination of bus services effective of August of 2028. So why in the world would the board take action right now? There is no other option. You have to give a minimum of a year notice to the state, the Department of Ed. The other reason that I believe you need to take action tonight is not a scare tactic as what you will hear on Facebook. We owe it to our community to let them know the straight truth of what's happening. Because unless there is a revenue source that will change this, this is what we have to do. And so a referendum in November will reverse this. This referendum is not asking for anything above and beyond our current status quo. It is to maintain bus service. Another resolution before you tonight is the dissolution of sports and clubs effective 1 year from now, in August of 2027. For sure, we know from grade 8 on down, robotics, sports, all the associated clubs. I think there's an academic club in there. And then we still have to figure out the high school piece of that and figure out all of our classroom instructional assistants. How many? What grade levels? That is still yet to be determined. But we owe it to our public to inform them right now, this is the real deal. This is reality. It has to happen, and we need to take action because we have to plan and we have to budget. If a referendum passes, we can come back to the board and reverse that action. But we owe it to our public. Right now, this is what will happen.
And it's the law. We have to give notice in advance. You can't just pop it up and say we're quitting tomorrow.
I've also heard, well, that's a school issue. You need to figure it out. Well, we've, as a homeowner, have figured it out. It's your turn to figure it out, school. Well, we have figured it out. This is the next page. This is what happens. There is no other option. Is it just a school issue? Imagine for just a moment when bus service is gone in August of 28. What might happen to student attendance? And kids can't get to school. And if you can't get to school, how are you going to optimally learn? Well, then student academic performance goes down. By the way, school letter grades are coming back, and that's based on student academic performance. So our community is going to be judged by the letter grade of our schools. And then think of all the subdivisions that are going in. And when people move to a community and they are planning their families, oftentimes they're checking out the quality of the school and that letter grade. So you've got student academic performance that's impacted. Of those families moving to our community and existing in our community, what happens when bus service goes away? That's not just a school issue, that's a community issue. Think of the working families that are then responsible for getting their kids to school. That ripples out to grandparents, aunts, uncles, neighbors, a team effort just to get kids to school.
And think about if they have kids in the elementary and the high school standing in both lines.
And there's only a 15-minute difference between the start times. And if you've ever waited in a parent pickup line at the end of the school day and they're already lined up out into the street, or in the morning on Commercial Avenue as Dunkin' Donuts is letting out and the high school traffic is backed up, imagine just for a moment the traffic gridlock on our streets in our community as a result of vehicles. We're 179 square miles. We're not Highland and Munster where we're nestled in between 6 and 8 square miles of when walking distance and riding your bike. That's just not reality here. So is this still a school issue or is it a community issue? Sports and clubs, my goodness. Think of the skills, the teamwork, the grit, the perseverance, how you handle disappointment. Those are very real practical things for our kids to learn. It's important for college applications, for job resumes, because people look at that and what sports develop out in our future generation. Think of the track or treat that take the proceeds from all of that and donate it to a good community cause, and the philanthropy that exists in our extracurriculars and our clubs, doing good and giving back to the community. So I argue it's not just a school issue, it's a community issue. And unfortunately, as we know in adolescent development, when youth have unstructured time on their hands, when they don't have a code of conduct and standard to be a part of an organization or a group, then oftentimes what happens in communities is you will have increased use of vape, tobacco use, drug use, alcohol use, vandalism, theft. I'm not trying to paint a bad picture on the youth of our community, but human nature is wherever you are, that tends to happen if you don't have structured, positive activities for kids to be involved in. And so then again, is it just a school issue or is it a community issue? Because I'm sure you're hearing like I do, well, I may not have a kid in school, so why should I care? Or I care, but it's really not going to impact me. I don't know, it might. And then instructional aides, nearly all of them are community members that make a living as a result of being employed in Tri-Creek schools. And until John Deere starts up, we are the largest employer in the community. And so imagine the impact on our community with the elimination of those jobs. This is why I say this is not a fun superintendent report, but this is reality setting in. And I hope the community can understand this referendum is not like the one in 2023. This referendum is solely to maintain status quo and no extras. So between now and election, We are hosting as many school town hall meetings as possible to finish out August. There'll be one a week in this room at the district administration office. So we tried to pick Tuesday night, a Wednesday night, varied time. So once next Tuesday's at 6 p.m. The following week it's at 9:30 a.m. during the day to capture people who are available at that time, and then the following week at 7 p.m. We will be hosting more informational sessions with our PTOs, our booster groups, and you'll eventually see those opportunities take place at the building level. Our goal is to just pass on the facts, pass on reality. And it's important that every single person in this community knows what's happening. And it is real. It's not a gimmick. It is absolutely real. So, any questions about the resolutions before you tonight?
Nope.
All right.
Just say if you're a no, go to a town hall meeting. Give us your ideas. Tell us how to solve the problem. You know,
We'll have a chair for you.
we have no problem with having frank, honest conversations with anyone that wants to have them. So, any no's listening out there, here's your times. Come and talk to us.
An action item before you tonight is the way that Indiana Code is set up, the school district appoints to the Lowell Public Library Board, and so we have a recommendation for Diana Dam. She is actually a former Tri-Creek Board of School Trustees member, and so she's our recommendation for you to appoint to the Lowell Library Board tonight. Student handbook revisions. I'm going to take a moment to scroll through some of the more detailed portions. The cell phone policy is the major overhaul. We talked about this pretty detailed at the last meeting. Basically, from bell to bell, student devices must be stored away and out of sight. So no during the hallways, no during class, no during lunch. They are powered off, turned away, or stored away by the beginning bell, and they stay powered off and put away until the dismissal bell rings, and then they may be used. This is state law now, and obviously we're required to update our handbook on that. And then a discipline matrix. So I'm going to go over here. What do you mean by discipline matrix? So I will tell you,
Did you get all that?
Speed read.
when Dana was talking about the ink drying on Senate Enrolled Act 1 and 8 months later, I've had at least 3 rounds of meetings with principals starting, there was one in June, they all got together, had another one in July, and then another full round today, trying to fine tune the ink on this page. Again, no policy change. I want to explain why we took so much time and why there was so much effort into this. On a monthly basis, we host what we call the superintendent roundtable in this room. And teachers come in and we talk about our guiding principles of focus on solutions. So we identify what's not going as efficient or as well in our district as we could. And then we embrace the guiding principle of shared responsibility. And we have dialogue about what are we going to do about it. One of the issues happening in our district was the application of enforcement of our school handbook procedures. And so what happens when a kid violates the policy and gets a consequence? Well, what Bobby is doling out as an administrator consequence might be slightly different than what you, Nate, are doling out, which you're a really nice guy, Andy, and so you just gave it, now come on.
Making me blush.
Yeah. And we needed consistency. So that was one. The second thing is, when we were generating reports at the end of the year of the infractions that were happening, was it a dress code violation or was it a cell phone violation? We were finding that depending on the administrator that was assigning the consequence, one might label it horseplay, where another one might label it inappropriate physical contact. And so it was like, okay, we need to clearly define what these codes stand for. So that was missing in our previous handbook. And then clearly define age appropriateness. So I'm trying to enlarge, there we go. You know, from the grade band kindergarten through grade 4, first offense, second offense, third offense. So for wireless communication device, this is, you know, what happens on that first offense? That's a bad example because that's district-wide, but like vandalism might be different for a third grader than when kids get older and they know better, might get then on into high school. So let's back up and walk through this. I want to make sure that you have a really good idea before you approve this tonight. So here we go. All alphabetized, and we start with academic dishonesty. And it defines the different ways that looks, how AI fits into academic dishonesty. And then it delineates, as you can just see, I'm not going to read this all to you. So if you've got any questions, just stop me as I scroll. Aggressive behavior. We clearly define what is that. And then what happens when that's put into place.
If kids show repetitive behavior in any of these, do the counselors get involved and try to work with them, or are there recommendations for counseling outside of school?
Yes and yes. So this is really geared on the discipline consequence side, but behind all of that absolutely would be.
Especially for redundancy.
Yeah. And whether that be counselor in-house or, like you said, a third party.
Outside.
Yeah. I'm just going to scroll through here. Our attendance policy didn't change. Bullying, we actually added additional information to this just to clarify what that entails. But again, no policy changes, just reformatting and clarifying administrative procedures. Here's an example. There was a code of like a bus violation in our computer system. Well, I think over the course of time what was happening was anything that happened on the bus, so such as name calling or insubordination, it was marked as a bus violation, but bus is just where it occurred. The incident really was name calling. The incident really was insubordination. Well, what it was really intended for was a violation of a bus rule, like standing while the bus was in motion or putting your arms out the bus window. And so we brought clarification to that.
Back up.
Coming from the bus driver. So some of these items a bus driver has at their discretion, just like a classroom teacher would. You're going to sit up here, assign a seat, may even have a relationship with the parent. I'm going to call the parent and I'm going to address. Once it hits the office, this matrix comes into play and works with transportation. Same thing for cafeteria expectations. We're talking about if it's labeled cafeteria, they didn't turn their tray in the right spot, or they were throwing food, different from insubordination, name calling, etc. Dress code violation, or dress code, nothing changed there, nothing changed with driving. Again, we consolidated several areas and just brought better clarity.
Is there anything in there about, like, say it is a first offense, but depending on the nature of whatever they did? As long as it's their first offense, is that just what the punishment they'll get? Or is there something that, depending on if it was something minor or something major, is there?
So this is 99% of the incidences that occur would adhere to exactly as written. But as you'll find in Indiana code, there can be a difference in context or an extenuating circumstance that school administration will need to take into consideration before issuing the offense. Such as an example, does the student receive special education services? And then that diverts to Article 7 and procedural safeguards that go in there. And so that would override any of this to some degree.
A lot of variables.
But rare. But to your point, yeah, there is latitude. If something is more severe, even if it is a first offense, then, but our goal is to adhere to this.
Right.
So in summary, biggest change is the cell phone. Everything else was restructured and clarified. Happy to entertain any questions. If there are none, this is, again, is a board action item for tonight.
No, I think it's great that you're dialing in a little bit more what type of behavior. It helps you target the problem. You can measure it, you can control it, so.
It's good for parents because parents know, it keeps the parents on the same page, administrators on the same page, and kids clearly know.
It's a reference for everybody. This
Yeah.
is what's gonna happen if this big activity occurs.
Yeah.
So
That's
you're,
great, and it's in writing.
so Nate, your little secret sheet that you keep buried under your desk. We married them together with everybody else's, and here it is.
Yeah.
And that's the superintendent report.
Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome.
Anything from the board members
Anything
this
from Nate?
month?
No.
Nate?
Next week I'll have our meeting.
Okay. Well, we can go ahead and go into our action items here. So, number one is student trip to Spain during spring break 2028. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed? Passes. Number two, the construction change order for Lowell High School access road paving. Get a motion.
I'll make a motion on that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Number three, the student handbook 26-27. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Number four, RDP Virtual Academy Student Handbook 26-27. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Number three, cash change bank at Lowell Middle School, Lowell Intermediate School for the 26-27 school year.
Number five.
Yeah.
Number five.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Number six, Career Tech Education Director Contract. I get a motion.
Make a motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Number seven, the appointment of Diana L. Dam to the Lowell Public Library Board of Trustees. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. These ones come with a heavy heart. Number 8, discontinuance of sports and clubs. You get a motion?
I'll reluctantly make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Number 9, termination of bus services. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Action consent items. The meeting minutes from Thursday, July 16th, 2026. Can I get
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Number 2, payroll and claims. Can you get a motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Number 3, the personnel report. Get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. All right, we get some board policy here. Board policies 26, 23.01 testing, 3220 staff evaluation, 5.36 for electronics.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, the board went line by line, conducted the first reading. There were no changes since the first reading, and so tonight is the second reading. If there's not a need to go line by line again, we certainly can, but if there's no need, then the board is ready to take a recommendation to adopt the revised policies.
Oh, I think the staff evaluation's great and looking forward to seeing that in action this year, so. Can we get a motion for,
I'll make a motion for board policies.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. We have short list for donations. $24 anonymous donation for the Feed Them Forward Fund.
I'll make a motion, I always do.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any public comment not related to action items? So just some other information. The next meeting of the Troy Creek School Board of Trustees is scheduled for Thursday, September 10th at 7 p.m. And can we just list off those dates when we're having our town hall again?
Yeah, so next Tuesday, August 11th at 6 p.m. right here in this room. Then Wednesday, August 19th at 9:30 a.m. right here in this room. And then the following Wednesday, August 26th at 7 p.m. right here in this room. We do intend to also live stream at least one or more of those and post it up. I will tell you the format will be a quick overview of the why the referendum, but really just a whiteboard as people come in. What question would you like answered? It'll be on the spot, so we take questions as people come in, and we will make sure every question gets answered before we leave.
Yep. And if you're not able to attend and you have a question, you want to send it to our board email, you know, we'll try and see if we can get it in and address it too.
Yep.
They can go on
Like I
the
said
website.
before, anybody who's a no or maybe on the fence, you know, we want to talk to the community. It's like Dr. Anderson said, it's an ecosystem. The school affects the community affects the school. You can't isolate one from the other. And so we want input from everybody, whether it's good or bad. So
As
come
long as
out.
it's civil.
If you can't come out, then, or if you're, can't be civil, always feel free to send us an email. I'm really good about answering those, so, looking forward to it. So with that said, we'll go ahead and close the meeting. Thank you, everybody.